the truth about imposter syndrome and why it's a powerful accelerator. Today's conversation is sponsored by the Billy Keels Advisory Program. If you want to learn more about how to make your 9-to-5 optional, just go to billykeels.com/advising. Once again, that's billykeels.com/advising. The truth about imposter syndrome and why it's a powerful accelerator is a very brief episode that was inspired by a post actually that I saw on LinkedIn. There's a guy there named Nat, and he'd made this post, and the post was about imposter syndrome. And because of the imposter syndrome post, it really got me thinking about my own life and how what many people call imposter syndrome, I'm actually now beginning to realize that it's not a syndrome, because it's not a sickness, right? And we'll get into more of that, but I'll tell you what I think about imposter, something else that everybody else calls imposter syndrome, and also why I believe that it's not a sickness. A syndrome is typically a sickness. So because this was inspired by him, it made me think a lot about my life and whether it was growing up in school or after school. I mean, middle school, high school, college, even after college in the professional world. There was always this desire to continue to feel confident, to do work, and to be a positive reference point for family, friends. And then once I got into the career world, of course, to be able to go out and make money, to have create financial resources. And so that's most of the thing. Like if you saw me from the outside, like you saw Billy, this is what he's doing. And you're, I'm sure, the same, if not the same, very, very similar. This is what you do when you're the reliable one. You're the one that everyone counts on. It's just inherent. And you'll also recognize that all these things on the outside, like my biggest goal has always been to grow personally, professionally, and to contribute to others, because I know that it brings me such a great feeling. And this is no different. And so when we start to think about things like imposter syndrome, it's really easy, like in the context of, and once again, I'll just use my own story, like whether it was in high school or college, and there were always people that were getting straight A's. Like I got really good grades, but I have friends who got literally straight A pluses. And so it was always like, wow, like whenever I talk to person X, I never feel kind of at the same level, because they're always achieving more based on someone else's criteria. At the same time, I knew that when I watched them, they helped to inspire me to continue to, like, that competitive nature inside of me. It was like, okay, I got to get to that point. Or the same thing happened when I started professionally. Professionally, there was someone who always had bigger teams, someone who was higher up on the org chart, and they're the inspiration. So you want to either try to move up the org chart to get that particular role, especially early on in your career. If you're listening now, you're probably at a different point in your career and you're trying to figure out, okay, well, you've got something else that you really want to get out of your head and out of your heart and out into the marketplace. But we'll come back to that. And then, like I think about this, the guy Nat, like he's on social media. And so when you're on social media, so many people are worried about how many people follow you. So maybe today you have 10,000 followers, but you're really inspired by someone who's got 100,000 followers, and you're trying to figure out how to do it. And on one hand, this imposter syndrome kicks in, and it makes you think, well, how in the world am I ever going to get to position X, executive VP or managing director? Or how am I ever going to get to 250,000 followers? Or how am I going to get to so many different connections? Whatever the case may be, along your journey, there's this constant fear, there's this constant doubt, and this ongoing comparison, which brings us back to what I was talking about before, this whole concept of the imposter syndrome. And I want to talk to you about the truth about imposter syndrome and why it's a powerful, or it can be a powerful accelerator. Because at the end of the day, when you start to realize that whether you're going for that particular role, executive VP, those number of followers, 250,000, a million, or to get the next best grade because everybody else was doing it, what you start to realize is the numbers are irrelevant for your life, because you don't need someone else's numbers, someone else's validation to help you move forward. It's not about massive numbers to make an impact. What it is about is for you to be crystal clear on what are the specific opportunities that you need for growth and contribution, and are you getting significant numbers of repetitions to get you there? What do I mean by that? Well, if what you really want to do, and you're starting to understand because you understand clearly what it is that you want to do, and why you want to do it, those are the types of things that will help you to recognize that it's not about chasing someone else's point of validation. It's about understanding and moving towards yours. You see, whenever you have a reference point, someone who is a few steps ahead of you or a few years ahead of you, the fear, the doubt, the comparison, it's easy for it to creep in. But here's where I want you to understand the powerful acceleration of the imposter. And I don't believe it's a syndrome. I'll share with you what it is just in just a minute or two. It can be a powerful accelerator because when you flip that around, that fear, that doubt, that comparison, and you start to use it as inspiration to move you from where you are to where that person is, understand that it can be a massive source of learning for you so that you can, if it's taken the person that has 100,000 followers, if it's taken them 10 years, they can teach you everything that it took them to do it in 10 years so that you can do it in half that time. And by being able to focus on an abundant mindset versus one of scarcity, you're working to figure out how that person has inspired you, how they got to where they are, and what lessons can you learn from them so that you can actually get to whatever destination you're looking to get to. You can get there much, much sooner. And the best possible way to do this is by taking action. It's not by just watching and observing. That's where the fear and the doubt creeps in. Once you take that fear and doubt and turn it around to inspiration, then you start to realize that, hey, listen, this is a person who's gone where I want to go. I can learn from what they've done, and I can actually get, by thanks to that person or their experience or something similar, you can get to your goal even sooner or even faster, right? And it's about turning around that thinking from a scarcity mindset really truly to abundant mindset. It will help to give you also a sense of perspective by following them. You see what's possible because they've already done the POC, the proof of concept. You know that it's possible. You can get there. And now it's just a matter of continuing to take the track to follow in their footsteps. Now, of course, along the way, you may want to try to keep up with the Joneses, as I like to say a lot of the time. But at the same time, if the path is already there, just follow the path. You don't have to keep up with them. Just keep moving. Just keep progressing. That's the thing. Because the thing is imposter syndrome, it is not a sickness. I do not believe it is a sickness. You should not believe that it is a sickness, that it is a syndrome, because it is part of your identity. This is the imposter identity that's going to help you to recognize patterns in others so that you can actually get to the goal that others have gotten to, and you get there faster because you're actually moving in the path. They've already created that draft. You follow in their draft, and you also improve on the things that they did well and minimize or sidestep the things that they didn't do well, because you're working closely with them. You're following, you're seeing what they're doing so that you can avoid the mistakes, the obstacles, and hit this accelerator on the things that worked really, really well. Because once you get there, like, these milestones are actually great, but don't let them become your labels. When you're talking about whether it was trying to get the perfect grade, or trying to move in the exact specific role and get the title within the company, or get to a certain number of connections on social media. Like, those are milestones. Don't let that become the label for you, because that's when it keeps you in the scarcity mindset. But realize, and this is the beautiful part of the transformation, when you hit that mindset and you understand that's not an imposter syndrome, it's part of the identity that helps you to move forward faster, progress. It's something that you can embrace and allow you to serve yourself while you're serving others. And it gets us back to the growth and the contribution that you're looking for ultimately. And so I want to leave that with you, because it's not a sickness. It's not a syndrome. It's part of the identity, part of that identity that allowed you to grow, to contribute to others, and do it in a way that is abundant. That's what imposter identity is about, not the imposter syndrome. So hopefully you can understand the thought process, how I've actually taken that concept of imposter syndrome, actually use it as something that's positive, and allow me, and I also see others, using that gap, and using that gap so you can realize, okay, it's not about what you don't have. It's about how far you've come from the initial understanding and establishing whatever your goal is so that you can grow and contribute to others. So listen, I know that you know somebody that needs to hear today's episode. You may need to listen to it again, take some notes. And while you're doing that, share today's episode with family, with friends. And more importantly, after you share, make sure you get on the phone and you talk to them. Talk about the concepts that are here so that you can go from theory to practice and actually put this imposter identity into play in your life so that you can grow, so that you can contribute to others. Now, with that said, while you're doing that, guess where I'll be? I'll be right here preparing for the next episode. So until then, go out and make it a great day. And thank you very, very much. Freedom! Today's conversation was sponsored by the Billy Keels Advisory Program. If you're looking to make your 9-to-5 optional and need some help, just go to billykeels.com/advising. Once again, that's billykeels.com/advising.